Hi everyone, and welcome back to my series on ocular melanoma. This is the third video. If you missed the first or second ones, those will be linked down below in the comments so you can get caught up before you watch this one. In this third and final part, I'll be talking a little bit about body scans and why they are so important to ocular melanoma patients. Once an ocular melanoma tumor has been treated and biopsied, as I mentioned in the last video, it can be placed into three different classes. Class 1A tumors have the lowest risk for metastasis later on. Class 1B tumors have a moderate risk, and Class 2 tumors have the greatest risk for metastasis. Once those tumors can be classified into one of those three classes, the oncologist can make an informed decision on a protocol scan for that patient. How often should that patient go in each year and have scans of their whole body or of certain parts of their body to check to see that that cancer has not spread. So there's a variety of ways doctors can do those scans. You can see a CT scan machine here. There are MRI machines. Some people have ultrasounds or PET scans. The scan protocol varies depending on doctors and depending on classes of tumors, and obviously based on patient preference. During some of these scans, many of us OM patients are injected with a contrast liquid via IV, which goes throughout our system and just helps the doctor to see clearer pictures of certain parts of our body to see if they can catch any of those tumors spreading at their very, very early stages. They're easier to see when there's contrast in there. So a variety of scan protocols. I've met many people who are on all different kinds of schedules for this. I go in twice a year. So I go in for a CT scan with contrast, and then 6 months later, I go in for an MRI with contrast. That's been my protocol since I was diagnosed. Those of you who know me well know that I am an English teacher and I love words and language. And so as part of all this cancer mess, one of the positives that came out of it is I got to learn a new word, which is scanxiety. And you can see the definition here, but I was actually interested to learn that scanxiety actually applies to two different parts of the scan process. Scanxiety refers to that dread and that feeling of negative anticipation that many of us patients feel as our scans are coming up, in the days or weeks prior to the scan, that feeling of, is this going to be the one where I get some bad news that my cancer has spread? Scanxiety, though, also relates to that feeling after your scan's done of sitting there and waiting anxiously for the doctor to contact you to let you know the results of the report. And hopefully we get the news that there is no evidence of disease. That's the term that's used for this cancer. I'm going to talk in the next segment about why, but no evidence of disease. The acronym for that is NED. And so many ocular melanoma patients will say that we are dancing with NED, meaning we are really happy because the doctor just called us that there was no evidence of disease. I mentioned in the last segment that most doctors, when they give good news to patients that their scans came back clear, will say that there's no evidence of disease. They will never say you're in remission or you're 100% cured from your ocular melanoma, because unfortunately, ocular melanoma works differently from many other cancers. This diagram, I think, does a good job explaining how. So imagine where it says primary cancer here, that's the tumor in a patient's eye. And as that tumor is growing, before the patient even knows they have the tumor there, it's possible that microscopic bits of that tumor have broken off and are traveling throughout the body. With most cancers, when microscopic bits break off, they travel through this green pathway here, the lymphatic system, and doctors can take biopsies of lymph nodes, and if those lymph nodes test positive for cancer, then they know that the cancer has spread beyond that point. Unfortunately, with ocular melanoma, the microscopic bits, if any have broken off, travel through the bloodstream, not the lymphatic system. So you can't just biopsy lymph nodes and make a definitive diagnosis that the cancer has spread. There is no blood test right now that's the standard to use to catch those cells. So we ocular melanoma patients have no idea if our cancer has spread throughout our body or not until metastatic tumors, like the one up in the upper right-hand corner, appear in other parts of our body. So these microscopic bits of the original tumor may be floating around our system, may not be, we don't know. And most likely, if they're in our system, they hide out in certain places. The most common is the liver. That's the most common place to find a metastatic tumor. People also find tumors in their lungs, in their bones. But this cancer, there's no way to definitively say you are 100% cured or you are in remission. We also cannot donate blood because of this, and we also cannot donate our organs because of this, because it could be possible that there might be little bits of that original tumor in those organs or in the blood we donate, and then we give it to the next person, and who knows what could happen there. So we're not able to do that either. But just a little bit of information about how ocular melanoma spreads differently and why we never can get that 100% assurance that things are safe. There are two main things that are always hanging over an ocular melanoma patient's head, and they're pretty heavy. The first one I mentioned in the last segment is that we will spend the rest of our lives never knowing if this cancer is going to spread until it does. So that's always hanging over our head, since there's no biopsy or test we can do to definitively say that we are in remission or clear from this cancer. The other thing hanging over our head is that there is no cure for ocular melanoma. The statistics show that 50% of us diagnosed with this disease will die from this disease at some point, and that's a really heavy thing to have over you for the rest of your life as well. So those are the two heavy parts, and I always like to balance the bad news with the good news. So here's some good news in all of this. The good news is that even though this is an orphan cancer with not a lot of dollars behind it, there are amazing groups of doctors and researchers and scientists all over the world who are working really hard to try and figure this thing out. And so as part of that, they are running trials for different kinds of treatments. And you can see this is a partial list of them behind me. But trials are being run all over the world where OM patients are volunteering themselves and bravely putting their lives and their bodies on the line for science to try and see if maybe some of these treatments might work either at prolonging life or hopefully one day lead to a cure. I have several friends that I've met in the OM community who are in trials right now, and they are bravely traveling all over the place to hopefully contribute to science and get some answers and hopefully find a cure. That's the goal here. So the good news is there are a lot of optimistic things coming up on the horizon. The FDA just recently approved one treatment for certain types of ocular melanoma tumors that was shown to be effective at prolonging life. So that finishes up my 3-part series on ocular melanoma. I'm sure there are some questions. Feel free to drop any that you have in the comments. I'm mostly an open book about all of this, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have that have come up during this series. 2 final reminders that I put in all of my videos like this. The first one is that I am not a doctor, so I do not have the definitive answers for all of this medical stuff. I just have done the research and talked to my own doctors and am reporting what I've learned. So please make sure that if you have anything going on with your vision, your eye, any change in vision, blurriness, flashing lights, that kind of thing, please get right to a doctor to have them check that out for you. And the second piece of advice I'm going to give you is to please get regular eye exams. And during those exams, please insist that you have that exam with dilation so that the doctor can see all the way as far back as they can and catch anything that might be going on back there that they wouldn't have been able to see. Thanks so much for watching these videos. I hope you've learned something, and I will see you soon.